You think getting dressed is something you do in 5 minutes. Shower, jeans, t-shirt, done. In Tudor England in 1530, getting dressed took between 45 minutes and 2 full hours every single morning. And it wasn't because Tudor women were slow or vain or had nothing better to do. It was because the clothing itself was a system. A complex, layered, structurally engineered system, held together with pins, laces, and the specific knowledge of exactly which piece went where and in what order. Get the order wrong, and you couldn't fix it without starting again. And that's before we even get to the part where the clothing was genuinely, physically painful to wear. This is what getting dressed looked like in 1530. Not the romantic version, the actual version.
It starts before you put on a single piece of what anyone would recognize as clothing. The first thing a Tudor noblewoman puts on every morning is a smock, a long linen shift, loose, full-length, long-sleeved, that sits directly against her skin. This is the most important garment she owns, more important than the velvet gown, more important than the jewels, because this is the only layer that will actually be washed. I need you to understand what that means. In 1530, washing fabric was an enormous, time-consuming, physically demanding process. You didn't wash your clothes the way we wash ours. You washed the smock, frequently because it absorbed everything, and you spot cleaned the rest. The gown you wear on top might cost the equivalent of a servant's annual salary. It is not going near water unless absolutely necessary. So the smock sits between your body and everything else. It catches the sweat, the skin oils, everything. It is the buffer between your body and the clothes that cannot be cleaned. Tudor clothing was, and I'm quoting a historian here, not being dramatic, never comfortable, never really clean, and probably never free of accumulated body odors and the perfumes used to mask them. The smock goes on first. In winter, in a stone-walled manor house before the fire has properly caught, the linen is cold against your skin. You don't wait for it to warm up. You move on to layer 2.
The kirtle goes on next, and this is where things get genuinely uncomfortable. The kirtle is a fitted undergown, tight, structured, and in 1530, stiffened. The front panel of the kirtle is reinforced with a busk, layers of linen stitched over whalebone, wood, horn, or metal. Its job is to compress the breasts and flatten the torso into an inverted cone shape. The ideal silhouette in 1530 is flat, not the hourglass we associate with corsets from a later era. Flat. The chest compressed, the stomach pressed inward, the whole torso smoothed into a rigid column. A historian who has actually worn reconstructed Tudor clothing describes it this way: I don't feel hungry when I'm wearing it because the stomach is pressed flat.
She means this literally.
The kirtle doesn't just change how you look, it changes how you breathe, how you sit, whether you can bend at the waist, how much you can eat at a meal. The kirtle laces up the back. Someone else has to do it. This is not optional. There is no version of getting dressed in 1530 that a noblewoman does alone. You need a maid. Specifically, you need someone standing behind you pulling the laces tight while you hold on to something and breathe out. In a great house, the ladies-in-waiting helped dress each other. In a smaller household, it was the personal maid. But either way, you cannot dress yourself. The back lacing is physically inaccessible without help. You cannot, in 1530, simply decide to get dressed and then get dressed. You are dependent on another person before you have even started.
By 1530, something relatively new has arrived in England: the farthingale.
It came from Spain,
Introduced to the English court by Catherine of Aragon when she arrived to marry Prince Arthur in 1501. By the 1530s, it has become standard for noblewomen at court. The Spanish farthingale is a bell-shaped hooped structure worn under the skirts. It's made from graduated circles of whalebone, wire, or willow hoops sewn into a linen or canvas petticoat. It creates the distinctive Tudor silhouette, that rigid, cone-shaped skirt that you see in every portrait of this era. It is also, practically speaking, a significant inconvenience. You cannot sit in a normal chair while wearing a farthingale. The hooped structure flares outward and the front lifts when you bend. You perch on the edge of furniture. You learn to move sideways through narrow doorways. You stop trying to walk through small spaces the way you used to. And when you sit down, quickly, without thinking about it, the whole structure can flip upward and expose everything beneath it. So you don't sit down quickly. You don't move quickly at all. The deliberately small, careful, slightly stiff movements you see in portraits of Tudor women, the ones that look like they're performing elegance, are not elegance. They are engineering. They are the movements of someone navigating a structural constraint while trying to make it look like that was the plan all along. Over the kirtle and farthingale goes the gown. And here is something nobody tells you about Tudor clothing. It is not sewn together. Or rather, it is not all sewn together. The gown exists in separate pieces. The bodice, the skirt, the sleeves. Each piece is made individually. Each piece is attached to the others for each wearing and detached again at the end of the day. The sleeves are pinned or tied at the shoulder with laces called points. The bodice is laced over a stomacher, a triangular panel of stiffened fabric that covers the lacing and creates the smooth front line you see in portraits. The stomacher is pinned into place down the sides. Everything is pinned. Massive, blunt-ended pins, the only fastening technology available in 1530, hold the entire construction together. And those pins move. If you sit wrong, a pin pokes you. If you reach the wrong way, a pin slides. If you've been wearing the outfit for 6 hours, at least one pin has worked loose somewhere. And you spend the afternoon carefully not making the movement that will cause the whole thing to shift. The delicate, careful, almost mannered way Tudor women move in contemporary descriptions, the way they hold their arms slightly away from their body, the way they turn rather than reaching, it's not affectation. It's a completely rational response to being held together by metal spikes. Last comes the headdress. And in 1530, this is a decision with political implications. The gable hood, the rigid architectural English hood that frames the face in a pointed arch, has been dominant at the English court for decades. Catherine of Aragon wore it. It is traditional, Catholic, English. But by 1530, something else has started appearing at court. The French hood, softer, more rounded, sitting further back on the head to reveal the hair in front. Anne Boleyn wears it. She spent years at the French court and brought it back with her. In 1530, Henry VIII is obsessed with Anne Boleyn, and in the process of trying to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The English court is splitting, quietly, dangerously, along lines of loyalty. Which hood you wear is not a fashion choice, it is a political statement. Gable hood, you are aligning yourself with the Queen, with tradition, with the church. French hood, you are signaling modernity, French influence, Anne Boleyn. And this is before we even get to the Sumptuary Laws, the acts of apparel, which dictate in specific detail what you are legally allowed to wear based on your rank. Purple, only the royal family. Crimson velvet, we look at portraits from this era and we see wealth, we see power, we see the extraordinary beauty of the fabrics, the embroidery, the jewels, and all of that is real. But the woman inside the clothing, The one who stood still for 45 minutes every morning while someone else built the outfit around her body, who learned to move in a specific way to stop the pin shifting, who chose her hood carefully because the wrong choice could read as a political allegiance she didn't intend. She didn't experience any of this as beautiful. She experienced it as work. Daily, invisible, mandatory work. That started before she'd had breakfast. On FLINT Chronicles, this is what we do. We go past the portraits, past the beauty, into what it actually felt like to live inside a moment in history. If that's the kind of history you're looking for, subscribe and turn on notifications, because there is a lot more where this came from.